Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're here at the home of Ken Zimmerman. Ken's one of our club members that comes dive with us quite a lot. Ken has got one of the biggest collections of antique diving helmets on the Central Coast. In fact, probably one of the biggest collections you're going to see anywhere else. We're going to go inside very shortly and have a look. But it's our January club meeting. It's the first meeting of the month, or the first meeting of the year, I should say. And we're just try something a little bit different. Come out, have a bit of pizza, a couple of beers, and really enjoy ourselves. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight to make sure that you all enjoy yourselves. And I'm sure we'll see you at future meetings as we go along.
I guess the purpose of tonight, then, as Bob mentioned, is to show you firsthand the collection. Last time when we had the meeting, we were down at the shop, and I think I brought about 10 down. And you can see that it's kind of hard to decide what helmets to bring. Plus, I had the truck loaded and took a lot of hauling in and out, so I thought it'd be a lot better if we just did it here. I've been collecting for several years, but I've been diving most of my life into something I've always wanted to do and everything, but I finally got kicked into it a couple of years back. And the helmets I have, a couple of years, yeah. Couple of years, 2.5, about 3 years, somewhere in there, you know. I was fortunate to be able to buy part of someone's collection too, not too long ago, so that's what helped it and so forth. In regards to the actual helmets themselves, they're from all over the world. And so tonight what I thought I'd do is I'll discuss or talk about them all, and then later on, if you have some time, we can try them on and play one of the things of the sort. Well, what I thought I'd do is I'd talk about the helmets in regards to the countries they're from, a little bit about the history that I know about it, and some of the stuff that I've had happen to me or things that have happened since I've had them and that. And I'll start off with the first helmet that I ever got. And I think I had this one down at the meeting, so I'm sorry if I did repeat this. This one that I actually purchased. And this came from a fellow in the United States who at first I thought was going to be a nice guy and a friend. He actually became a friend of my brother's. My brother lived a couple hours from him. My brother was traveling back and forth because it was a pretty good investment. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy it or not. And what convinced me is, I don't know if you recognize this photo or not, but this photo is from the 70s from Skin Diver magazine. And Skin Diver magazine periodically would sell these posters. Now that is a poster from Skin Diver magazine, but it's a real thick cardboard one. And while we were thinking about buying that helmet, I had just happened to get those posters out of the garage, and Daniel said, "Hey, take a look at this." And that's the helmet. No, not that helmet, but that company. So this is what started me off right here. And this is from Truck Lagoon, and on one of the ships there that they found that particular helmet. And that's that type of helmet. So that's a Japanese helmet. That helmet's from World War II. I was told that it was a Toa, which is one of the companies, which is one of the good companies there. So I went ahead and purchased it. Then a little later on, I noticed that this guy who had it on his website changed it to a Korean helmet, which is less expensive. And I said, "Well, you said Toa." He goes, "No, I never said that." So he was sort of trying to rip us off. Well, in the meantime, I didn't really know what to do about it. And a couple other helmets I was getting from him and everything and that. In the meantime, we were checking into it, and we found right on the brails, the straps themselves, which hold on to the suit, there was some writing, and it turned out to be another helmet, which is even more valuable than the Toa. That's Japanese. It's a helmet called the Sensu. And that's what that helmet is in the picture. It's a Sensu. And that's a company that's out of production now. Toa still makes helmets. And the Sensus were even more valuable. So I got the last laugh. This is a Japanese Toa. This is called a Toa Perler. And the reason it's called a Toa Perler, if you look at this style compared to some of these other styles, it's a little bit different. One of the first companies to start, which I'll show here shortly, the diving helmets, was a company called the Hankey. And the Hankeys were in England, and they had a helmet called a Perler, which looks similar to this. Now all the other companies liked that, and they decided, hey, we're going to do it too. So the Hankey had the Perler. CB Gorman, which I don't have a CB Gorman Perler, they have a Perler, and then the Toa had a Perler too. So this is a fairly nice helmet, and this is a Toa Perler. I'm not sure of the date of this. I think maybe the 40s or 50s, but that's the Toa Perler. This helmet here is another Sensu from probably the 20s. I was fortunate with this one because it's got a lot of the stuff stamped in it as far as the braille goes. And a lot of times from the wear and tear, you can't read everything. This one here has got a lot of nice writing on it, so you can read a lot of the writing on the actual braille itself. And what we do is when we're looking at those to see if they're for real, because you could stamp anything you want in it, what people do, they make mistakes, is because the stamping on the helmet and the stamping on the braille need to be about the same size and the same fonts. And people a lot of times aren't paying attention to that. When they put it in fake, that's how we pick it up. So this is all genuine. This glass is interesting because I'm not sure how it broke, but I had an older gentleman who was an ex-Navy diver, or ex-construction diver down here several months back, and he liked that because he said, "Oh, that reminds me of a time I had one broken on me." And I'm going, "Okay, what happened next?" And he says, "Oh, water was just squirting in my face, and it got to be a real pain in the ass. Finally, I had to come up." But if you hear this, it's fairly solid glass, and they're fairly hefty pieces, so they're not going to just shatter. And so it really wasn't that big of a deal. Obviously, they'd replace this as soon as they could, but it doesn't stop the dive unless it actually broke. These are the Russian hats. Sorry, my back's to some of you guys. The Russian hats, and I have a fourth one back here with Ben, so I'm going to bring that one out. Stand for a second. Yeah, they're heavy. Okay, now, as you've seen, this style here is a little bit different than this. A lot of the same principles, but when they had the Cold War and when Russia was doing all these things, we never gave Russia enough credit for some of the things that they actually did. And their helmets are really good helmets, especially the 3 bolts. The 12 bolts aren't bad, but the 3 bolts are really well designed. They're solid. And of all the helmets, these are probably, if I had a choice of what helmets I'd be diving in for construction work, it would either be the Mark V's or the Russian hats. Now, the other helmets are good, and they'll do the thing. And, well, CB Gorman's an actual good helmet, too. But I was quite surprised the quality and the engineering involved in the actual Russian hats. So I don't think we've given them enough credit because the Yanks are obviously going to say, and we all hate Americans, don't we, Bob? They're all going to say, well, we're the best because look at our helmets and so forth. So that means that everybody else is garbage, especially the Russians. And that's not true with the diving helmets. This gear is excellent. Russian 3 bolt, 1956. This is a Russian 3 bolt, I think, in the 80s. 88. And this is a 12 bolt, 1967. I can't speak Russian, and everything's in Russian, so I have a lecturer at the university. She's Russian, and she read these out for me. These two are the Navy, and this was actually advertised as a construction hat, and I thought, okay, great. And it's actually Russian Navy, which makes it even more valuable. Russian Navy during the Cold War, so that's interesting. That's a Russian Navy. This one here is the Ministry of Rivers, so they worked in the rivers with that. It just happens to be these are more solid hats. They're doing heavier construction, deeper diving than some of these. This one you can see has got the crap beat out of it, which is the patina. It makes it look nice. But I wouldn't imagine I'd want to be diving with this helmet too much more because it's starting to get to the point where it's starting to wear out. So there's this one here. If you let me turn this chair around. This is a Russian 3 bolt, but this is a helium hat. Now, as you guys already know, after a certain depth, you've got to get rid of that nitrogen. And if you look at the 3 bolt up here, it's a little bit different. Okay, we have the canisters for getting rid of CO2 and injecting air, and with extra oxygen, there's extra stuff in the back here. And this is the actual Russian helium hat. Really good engineering. Personally, even though these are talked up a lot, okay, there's a lot less to those than the American helium hats. Okay, now this one here is heavier than that, but as I mentioned to you earlier, the American hat's almost twice as much as far as the weight's concerned. So really, I'm impressed with the engineering here. Back probably in the 20s, late 20s, early 30s, came to the companies and said, look, we want a particular type of hat that's standard throughout the U.S. Navy, not you're making one and another company's making another, because it was hard to get parts, and it was hard because nothing was interchangeable. So they came up with a plan, and as a matter of fact, the plan is back here. This is a copy of the plan. There's a lot more to it than that. And 4 companies came up with it. Desco, which is still in existence, Morris Diving, which is still in existence, Schrader, which is out now, and that's one of the Schrader hats, and the Miller Dunn. They all got the same hat, same plans, and they all built the same hats. So if you take a look at these hats, okay, this is 1945, 1944, I think, 1943, something like that. You can see this is Desco, this is Schrader, and the exact same thing because they worked off the same plan. This is 2006, and you can't tell the difference between the 3 of these because they were all off the same plan. And to go one step further, there's a chap in Italy that makes miniatures, and this hat here is not a replica, this is a miniature. If you could get your head in it, you could dive this hat. All right, everything's working, the valves, non-return valves, electronics, and everything. He got the plans from Desco, the permission from Desco, and he builds miniatures now.